Hi, welcome to Watts Weekly. I am Lucas Graciano. I'm one of the instructors at the school. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about my sketchbook and thumbnailing process. So what I have here is kind of how I would approach doing the beginning phases of any illustration I'm assigned. So when I receive an assignment, it'll have a brief description describing what they need. And what I'll do is I'll start at this phase trying to develop interesting compositions. How do I break up the space? I look for values, shapes, interesting ways of telling the story. And I don't really have a set medium I use. I like to try and change it up a little bit because it helps me oftentimes develop new types of shapes or certain things I wouldn't normally do in a typical medium I would normally use. So here I've got a couple of gouache studies. These are color comps. So this one is a little bit different here. This is once the client has approved the thumbnail, I then send them a couple of color comps or just giving them a basic idea of how I want to go, and they pick one of those that they liked. This is where I would start. I'm just trying to develop some interesting shapes. These are a little bit more pattern, shape heavy. I try to sometimes keep it a little bit more simple. I'll show you a couple other ones I have. So this page here is pretty crude. For me, it's about trying to find the most interesting breakup of space in the image as possible. So I have a basic idea in mind, like I might get assigned a dragon and with a certain kind of story to it. So I'll develop different types of shapes I can use, like the wings and the tail and different elements of the creature and maybe the background. And but at this point, for me, it's just merely pattern and composition. How do I break up the space and make it interesting? This other side here, I developed about 8 different thumbnails, and I picked a few that I really liked, fleshed them out with some gouache paint, and gave the client a little bit more, just to show them emphasis. Like, these are the ones I like. I prefer to paint one of these, but give them options. They want to have some options so that they can see what would be the best route for the cover or the whatever you're illustrating. So some more other simple ones. Sometimes they're smaller. So I try to keep away from doing too much detail. I don't want to put too much rendering into these. It's mainly about idea generation and interesting spatial breakup. Okay. So most of these are done in ballpoint pen, really loose and simple. There's not a whole lot there. Sometimes ideas get abandoned pretty quick, but that's okay. That's the idea of thumbnails, is just getting them plotted out and developing as many different ideas as possible. This was some more gouache ones. I also do them digitally. A lot of my preliminary stuff is done digitally. If I'm traveling or if I'm not near my computer at home, I can bring my laptop with me and do sketching on the road. So it helps save time for me because I can't always be at the easel. Painting digitally is very appealing for this beginning phase. It's easy to fix mistakes. It's easy to put another layer on top of another layer and experiment and not be afraid of losing what you had before. So I find the digital medium to be very useful, and I love using it. For end results, though, I prefer working traditional oils. For me, that's the most fun, and you always have an original that you can sell afterwards. And, there's just something romantic about it, and just I had trained so long developing my skills to be able to do oil that I feel I want to put it to good use, and be able to use it in my job, and it's worked out pretty well. So here's a few other ones. This was a dragon assignment. The client had a few parameters I had to work within, but then it's just about developing up ideas. But you can see most of this sketchbook's dedicated to thumbnails. Not all of it, but most of it's thumbnail stuff. Mainly, I don't know. It's just what I did for this particular sketchbook. But I've got dozens of other sketchbooks, some filled, some not. But I'm not really a huge sketchbook guy. Most of my sketchbook stuff's done use it mainly for job stuff, but I've just never been a really big sketch guy. I've had a lot of friends who are really into sketchbooks, and they're really good at it, and they're just built for it. For me, I don't know. It was never really my thing to just sit and sketch all the time. But you know, I wish I was able to have that kind of mentality. You can see like these are really crude, really simple. Some are not really fleshed out as much as others. See, at this point, it's not even really about value so much. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's more about the organization of my elements in the image. The description calls for a certain amount of stuff to be in it, so I have to kind of figure out how do I organize the image. Is the character on top? Is he below? Is he to the left, to the right? Is he this big? Is he that small? And I just try to organize those shapes so that they're kind of fun. So some more painting, more sketches, thumbnail sketches. I usually, what I'll do too, because they're pretty nice, what I do is I put tape along these and I organize them so that they're kind of nice looking. Coming up, Jeff always instilled doing high grade, you know, whatever you're working on, whether it be thumbnails for illustration or portrait or whatever, make sure you do it to the highest level possible and make it as professional and clean as possible. And I kind of took it to heart, so I do a lot of thumbnailing, except for obviously this page, of course. Kind of just scratched on there. So just different ideas. Some work better than others. Some get abandoned pretty quick. Yeah. Thumbnails are a great way of just exploring different ideas. I don't have any more. Got a few more back here. They're kind of just ways for me to explore different possibilities. And that's what I'm looking for. I want to get as many ideas out there as possible, exhaust all of the terrible ones, and try to get the ones that are going to work, or at least build the stepping stones to the ones that will work. But I never know where the end result is going to be successful if I don't do the bad ones first. They have to be, it's a stepping stone process where you have to get those bad ideas out so that the good ones will come forward. It's a similar idea in conceptual design. Artists who are working conceptual design for movies or video games, you'll find that they tend to develop as many different ideas as possible and then develop an idea that the director might like a little bit more. So they flesh out the details, the anatomy, the practicality of the image. For me, it's not about practical elements at this point. It's mainly about how do I organize shapes to make it clear. Obviously, this one's not very clear. This one would need a lot of information to help it become more clear. This one's a little bit more clear, a little more organization of shapes. You can see I have some areas that are dark, some areas that are light, and how I surround those elements. You know, if I need something in focus and it's dark, I add a light behind it. If it's something that's in focus that's light, I add a dark around it. But I try to think in terms of foreground, middle ground, background. So in this one, we've got a character aiming a gun this way. He's in the foreground part of the image. Middle ground are the soldiers kind of coming forward, and then there's a big dragon in the background. So there's a lot of depth that's happening in that image. I don't think I have any more thumbnails back this way. But planar landscapes, gouache. Let's see. I'm not sure which ones I showed you. Some more sketching. Master studies. So you can see my sketchbook's pretty eclectic. I like to do a lot of different stuff with my sketchbooks, but mainly this one is for thumbnails. So in this one, I've got a character in the foreground. Middle ground would be the landscape. Background would be the distant landscape. So I'm trying to build as much depth as possible into an image. Foreground character, middle ground focus, and then background, you know, supporting elements and areas that aren't as detailed. But yeah, for me, it's about creating as much clarity and interest in the shapes and the organization of those shapes as possible. So, and my process with digital is kind of similar to something like this. It's very crude. I usually just start out sketching very loosely. I think there might even be a video online course where I demonstrate that. It might even be in the sketchbook phase. I don't know that I'm just demonstrating the thumbnails, but I'm pretty sure it might be in my illustration course. I apologize, I forget. It's been a while since I filmed that one. But anyway, yeah, I just don't be afraid to really kind of dive in and explore different ideas. And if something doesn't work, just you know, it's easy just to go on to the next one, start a new one, or beat it into submission. That's the thing I like about the digital is I tend to, if something's working in an image but it's not working as a whole, what I can do is throw up another layer, erase what's not working, or start paint over what's not working, and still retain the stuff underneath that works pretty well. So that said, I think that's about it for thumbnails. I don't know, there's probably more, but I think that's good for now. Anyway, hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.